Okay, for this problem, I'll be working out number 31 from the 4-1 worksheet. I'll be working out both parts A and part B. Now what we're doing on this problem is we're taking an expression and we're replacing the x in the expression with 2 and the y in the expression with -1. Now there's two parts to it because what this problem is trying to illustrate is that this exponent right here that is outside of parentheses does not get distributed into the parentheses, kind of like the way the distributive property has worked before when we were working on problems. An exponent does not get distributed. If it did get distributed, then part A would end up being exactly like part B, and you're going to find out that it's not. Okay, let's start with part A. Now we have the quantity x plus 2y raised to the third power. So that means we need to take x and y and replace them with their values, 2 and -1, and then work out what's inside the parentheses, and then take that and raise it to the third power. So let's get started. First I'm going to replace this x with a 2. Drop down my plus sign. Now I have my 2 there. Now I'm taking that y and I'm turning it into -1. Now, what I have to do inside the parentheses is I have to multiply first before I can add. I have to keep order of operations intact. So I'm going to go 2 plus, now 2 times -1 is -2. Now I have my 3 exponent out there still. 2 plus -2, of course, is 0. And 0 to the third power gives you 0. Now for part B, we don't have the exponent over the x plus 2y as it was in part A. We have an exponent applied to the x and to the 2y separately. So we're going to replace the x with a 2. So we'll be doing 2 to the third plus 2 times -1 to the third. Now this exponent right here, as we talked about in the notes, this exponent only applies to the y. It doesn't apply to the 2 as well. If it had applied to both, what it would have looked like would have been this. The 2y would have been in parentheses with the exponent outside. Since it's not, since there's no parentheses, that means that exponent only applies to the y. Okay, so here we are. Now remember we have to do order of operations, and exponents is one of the first things we do in order of operations, so we can go ahead and do 2 to the third. 2 to the third means 2 times 2 times 2, which is 8, plus, now we have to do this -1 to the third power. We don't multiply the 2 times the -1 yet. That wouldn't be following order of operations. We need to do the -1 to the third power first. So -1 times -1 times -1 is -1. You can work it out on a calculator if you want to. Now we can go ahead and multiply 2 times -1. So I'm going to drop down my 8 plus 2 times -1 is going to be -2. Now 8 plus -2 is going to be a positive 6. So as you can see, part A gave me a 0, part B gave me a 6. That just goes to show that when I have an exponent up here, I cannot just distribute that exponent in. I have to work out what's inside the parentheses and then take that total and raise it to the whatever exponent we have. Okay?